Bueno, buenos días a todos y a todas. Good morning to everybody. My name is Cristina Miranda Palacios, and I am the founding executive director of La Liga de Ciudades de Puerto Rico, the League of Puerto Rican Cities. We're super excited to be here today in this webinar from ICAMU, our Instituto de Capacitación Municipal, with re+connect. We're here with Jasmine Sheen. She's been an amazing partner and ally of La Liga. And we're also here with Joel Berrocal. With me is also Andrea from my team. And we're going to be talking today with Jasmine about an amazing, amazing tool that we all need and that they're designing in a very participatory way. So Jasmine, really delighted to have you here. This is our second webinar with you. The first one was in Spanish. Kudos on your Spanish, but this one is fully in English. So thank you so much for what you're doing. We're looking forward to having a robust conversation. So take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And so my name is Jasmine Sheen. I'm the co-founder and director of re+connect. I'm excited to have this opportunity to tell you more about what re+connect is, what we do, and why we do what we do, and how we look to work with all of you to create a more connected and resilient future together. And in today's conversation, we're also lucky to have Joel Berrocal, the National Director of Operations of the National Puerto Rico Chamber of Commerce, and Cristina Miranda from the Executive Director of La Liga, which is heard from, and also Andrea from La Liga. And before we start, I would like to take a moment and thank the teams who made the event possible. They are Andrea Vázquez Colón, Cristina Miranda Palacios, Ariana Cortero Flecha from La Liga de Ciudades de Puerto Rico, and Joel Berrocal, Valerie Garcia from the National Puerto Rico Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for organizing and promoting the events. So for the next hour or so that we have together, I'm going to walk us through how we created re+connect, our solution and innovation, the people and partners that made the initiative possible, our business and impact model, and our call to action for all of you. And before we jump into today's conversation, I'd love for us to get to know each other a little. If you would type in the chat box your name and organization or sector, where you're calling in from, and what you're most curious about today. And also to tell you a bit more about myself, I was born and raised in Southern China, and I've spent most of my adult life living in different parts of the US and traveling and working in many parts around the world, from the Amazon jungle to the Ethiopian highlands. And I've been studying and working on environmental and social impact issues since when I was 15. And the first time I landed in Puerto Rico was during the 2017 San Sebastian Festival. It was, for me, love at the first visit. And since Hurricane Maria, I've been coming back to Puerto Rico multiple times a year as a volunteer and researcher. And now I'm running re+connect from San Juan. And welcome again, and I hope we'll have a productive and constructive conversation today. So re+connect is a civic technology initiative that integrates software technology and community engagement programs to close the last mile disaster relief gap and build long-term resilience for underserved communities. We work to connect residents, community groups, and disaster management and aid agencies with crowdsourced, data-driven intelligence to direct the right responses to the right places at the right time. And how did we get here? As we know and have started to experience, disasters are growing in frequency and severity. And this reality exposes the gap in meeting the needs of all affected communities, and especially the most vulnerable populations. From Hurricane Maria in 2017 to the most recent rainstorms and widespread power outages on the island, Puerto Rico has been confronting one shock after another. With an economic crisis spanning more than a decade, colonial legacy, and other structural, demographic, health, social, and infrastructure stresses, Puerto Rico is in a particularly vulnerable position when confronted with natural disasters like hurricanes. The need to better prepare the island for future disasters is immense and urgent. And in the past 3 years, our team has been leading collaborative research and design processes with residents, community leaders, civil society, government agencies to better understand the needs on the ground. We examined the tools and maps community have been using to keep records of their most vulnerable populations. We had in-depth conversations with people from all across the island to hear their stories. We joined brigades and community leaders delivering resources and services to affected communities. We organized virtual co-design workshops to generate new ideas, prioritize functions, and also to build a greater sense of empathy across the disparate groups. And finally, we continuously tested our designs with user groups to create new iterations of the platform. And here are some snippets of learning that came from these activities. For example, here we're seeing the responses to the question about what type of change participants wanted to see in their community. More inclusivity, coordination, empowerment, consistency, and greater sense of service. And we also generated and voted on ideas on how we might be able to solve the greatest challenges. And we created a common vision of how a more resilient future would look like and what that means for our communities. So what we learned through this engagement is that we need to figure out how to direct the right responses to the right places at the right time. To illustrate the disaster experience and how re+connect responds to these challenges, we created 4 personas. These are fictional archetypes that represent the most important groups of people and their experiences when a disaster strikes. And the first persona is an elderly resident, Julia. She is a grandmother who lives alone in the mountainous Utuado and with limited mobility. It was impossible for her to access even the basic essentials like food and water. And she often felt lonely and nervous when storms may remind her of Huracán Maria. And the second persona is a typical resident, Mario. And like many small business owners, he had to close his comado after Maria. He felt lost and disconnected, and he wanted to help the community, but wasn't sure where to start. The third persona is a community organizer, Mariana. She is a local school teacher, and when she saw the community's devastation, she rallied her neighbors and started a community kitchen in an abandoned school to prepare hot meals for those in need. She also goes around the neighborhood to keep a record of the most vulnerable people. But with only a few pairs of hands and limited resources, it's been a constant struggle for her to keep up with the operations. And the fourth persona is a relief program manager, Carlos. His organization is based in San Juan and received lots of donation and resources from around the country. But without information about community needs, he was facing tremendous difficulty sending food and water to where the greatest needs were. So what we learned through our collaborative design and research efforts is that the last mile disaster relief gap between resources and communities in need is a result of 3 key missing pieces. The first is reliable and up-to-date information about community needs. Second is mechanisms to coordinate across diverse stakeholder groups. And the third is accountability measure to make sure that relief efforts are carried out effectively and responsibly. And because of these challenges, relief efforts have ended up in duplication of efforts and resources in some places, while other places were neglected. A mismatch with community needs and potential problems of sustainability, such as allocating and retaining federal relief funds. So in response to all these challenges and building on all the learning from the field, we created re+connect that leverages data, technology, design, and social sciences to close the last mile disaster relief gap in 4 phases. First, we enable residents to crowdsource community information about their needs and capacities, both for themselves and for others who do not use a smartphone. Second, we match trusted partners based on data insights derived from the crowdsourced community information, such as where the needs are, what resources are available, and who operate in the area. Third, we help communities and agencies coordinate and streamline the resource delivery process. And lastly, we help track and demonstrate the impact internally and to funders. And now the exciting part is that I'm going to walk you through a demo of the application. And I would also like to point out that we are still in the process to continue working with users to bring the current design to the next level with greater detail and refinement. And also the demo I'll be showing you will be in English, but the application will also be available in Spanish. So I'm going to adjust my screen a little bit. And now, can you all still see?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So if you still remember the 4 personas, so residents like Mario in Utuado can now become a community ambassador through our mobile application. Once signed up, Mario can create his profile by sharing with us his basic information, areas that he'd like to work, causes that he cares about, and skills and resources he'd like to offer, and also any needs he may have in case of an emergency. And as a community ambassador, Mario can now visit and register for his neighbors like Julia, the grandmother who lives alone in Utuado and doesn't use a smartphone, which for her, Mario can make sure that he can record his basic information and also her most essential needs in case of a disaster, which for her included insulin and also to search for cooked meals. And now Mario can also see and manage the list of people he supports as a community ambassador. And then based on his preferences, Mario can also see a list of relevant organizations that work in his area. He can add organizations as a favorite and also to share his skills, time, and resources when needed. So now for organizations. Community leader Mariana and Relief Program Manager Carlos can sign up on behalf of their organization through our web application. In the profile, they can add key information about their organizations, include areas of operation, impact areas, and qualifications. Such information will be shared with their organizations in the network. Organizations can also access a list of community ambassadors that sign up to support their mission. So now, through our web application, Mariana and Carlos can access information on community needs, resources available, and operating organizations in the area. And after an overview, they can choose to review information in greater detail. They can also filter information that they'd like to see, or combine units of analysis with other cities and municipalities. And lastly, they can also choose to download the data in the preferable format for further analysis. So for organizations that distribute relief resources, they can list and manage them through our platform as well. So to add a resource, they can provide detailed information, the description, the requirements for solicitation, the logistics for exchanging the resources, and contact information, as well as additional processes to apply for it. So when two organizations are ready to work together, they can start an agreement right within the application to streamline the administrative and management processes. So, me coming back to our presentation. So, to summarize and to illustrate how we're connecting people and data to close the gaps, I'm going to invite the personas back and see how a more resilient future could look like through the help of re+connect. So with the re+connect mobile application, residents like Mario can sign up to be a community ambassador, and connected through their community leader, Mario can now regularly visit Julia to help report on her needs and also lend a helping hand when she needs extra support. Mariana is also happy to know that she can count on Mario when she needs extra hands. And throughout the year, not just when disasters happen, re+connect will process, aggregate, and analyze crowdsourced community information and provide data-driven intelligence to organizations. So with reliable community information, Carlos now can have the confidence to make decisions on how much and what type of food to procure, which communities to prioritize, and which community leaders he can trust with the distribution process. And Mariana can now easily track who are the most vulnerable households that she needs to take special care of and deliver hot meals to. And starting from the agreement they sign, Carlos and Mariana can easily plan and coordinate each step of transporting fresh food and water from San Juan to the community kitchen in Utuado. And with the help from community ambassadors like Mario, who share that he has a van and can work on certain days, Mariana can now rally more help to bring food to the homes in a more timely manner. And now with re+connect, Mariana can also easily share media reports and stories with Carlos to demonstrate how they have been helping residents Julia in times of need. And Carlos can gather these reports from all of his community partners and share with his own funders. And in summary, re+connect is a mobile and web application that accommodates the needs of the different users. In the back end, we will be registering accounts for organizations and approve ambassador accounts, and also to provide any support in case of a problem. And for individuals, they will be using the mobile application that allows them to interact with application on the road and in places without internet. And for residents who are not registered as a community ambassador, can still opt in to receive a copy of their profile and relevant information on emergency preparation. And for organizations to perform the more complex tasks, they will be able to access the responsive web application both on their laptop and in the office and in the field. And the web application will be supported with crowdsourced community data and analytics. And in addition to the collaborative design efforts, we have also studied existing solutions tried out in Puerto Rico and around the world, ranging from community mapping efforts using pen and paper to tech platforms like Facebook and WhatsApp. And learning from these existing tools, we're bringing additional innovation and leveraging the lessons from them. The first part is that, and we have been continuously emphasizing and putting efforts into, is that we invite all key stakeholder groups to be an integral part of designing what matters, from the technology solution itself to how the community data is used and how we engage the different residents. We also understand that not everyone is comfortable or uses a smartphone. That's why we empower residents to become community ambassadors to bridge this digital gap by reaching out to their friends, family, and neighbors who prefer face-to-face interactions and who need more regular in-person visits. And we are designing and building our application to be lightweight and optimized for offline access as we account for the uncertainties and limitations when disasters strike, and also in terms of local contexts. And we also do so by mobilize action before disasters strike, and with a focus on building social connections that have shown to serve as one of the most important factors of how individuals are surviving and recovering from shocks. And lastly, we deploy social sciences and best practices to encourage and augment pro-social collective actions among individuals and organizations where hurricane season returns every year and that we need consistent participation. So there have been many people and organizations who have been part of the initiative. We are a very proud all-women team with diverse experience and expertise, from product development to climate resilience, co-design, data governance, and community engagement. We're also supported by experienced advisors who bring valuable expertise in policy, community engagement, disaster informatics, entrepreneurship, social sciences, and marketing. We're also very grateful to have had the opportunity partnering with a wide range of organizations for research, technology, and data co-development. And our work has been made possible with funding from the National Science Foundation, Natural Hazard Center, and MIT. Given the different needs and roles of the 4 user groups, we're testing different business and impact models to make sure that we're creating a sustainable and viable initiative. We provide community ambassadors with a mobile application, and residents may opt in to receive messages or emails. For organizations, they will be able to access through a web application to perform the more complex tasks. And we also will be providing incentives, which can be in the form of monetary form and other, to community ambassadors, community groups, and small NGOs to help them mobilize the resources to crowdsource information on the ground. And lastly, governmental agencies, large NGOs, foundations, and private sectors will be the main paying customers, while community groups and small NGOs can petition to access our products and services for free or at a reduced price. In summary, re+connect will be providing the following services to our diverse user groups. In collaboration with community leaders and ambassadors, we'll be providing up-to-date and reliable data and intelligence on community needs and capacities that have been sorely missing. We'll provide a mobile and web application for both the offline and field work that can be easily integrated with existing workflows. And organizations can also choose and bundle the most relevant functions with a disaster-proof setup. Lastly, for organizations with special needs, we provide tailored consulting services with our network of expertise to deep dive on issues and to create customized tools. So in the face of disasters, we look to achieve impact across scales and actors in Puerto Rico. For the 3 million residents, all of us, no one is spared from the potential harm from disasters now. We look to reduce harm with improved services and build resilience with greater social connectedness. For community ambassadors, they now have an opportunity to gain new skills and a greater sense of agency in their efforts to make a positive impact for their community and feel supported in the process. For community groups, we help them become more effective in their organizing efforts and have greater ease and success accessing the right resources and support. And lastly, as Puerto Rico continues to recover and prepare for future disasters, will help improve the efficacy of disaster management efforts with better informed decisions and enhanced coordination. So as we know, Puerto Rico is only one of the many places in the US and around the world where disasters strike again and again. In 2017 alone, disasters caused over $300 billion in damages, and many places faced similar challenges in meeting community needs as Puerto Rico. And we look to tailor our solution to other disaster-prone areas in the US, such as Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. And after 3 years of collaborative design and research efforts, we are ready to build and test our minimum lovable product with the most essential functions. We'll be building and piloting the initiative in phases for a most cost-effective, adaptive, and collaborative approach. We also believe that our initiative to enable community participation in integration of local knowledge and information is transferable to improving other sectors such as the environment, public health, urban planning, civic engagement, education, and many more. And here are the many faces of Puerto Rico that inspire us to continue building re+connect. And now we need all hands on deck to reach the 1 million residents in the next 5 years. And now here our call to action to all of you. We are actively looking for partners to advance re+connect to the next level. And in particular, we're looking for donation, investment, or in-kind support to help with the building of the software itself, technology, infrastructure, collaborative product development, business development, operations, and research and development. We're looking for collaborative partners and also talents in fundraising, product development, R&D, such as artificial intelligence and data science, as well as marketing and engagement. We're also looking for consulting opportunities to dive into focused research areas and create tailored solutions with our network of experts. And specifically, at the moment, we are looking for 10 implementing partners, so community groups, NGOs, and governmental agencies to join our bid for $1 million National Science Foundation grant. And currently, stage 1 application is open. It's due on May 5th for a $50,000 grant for 6 months of engagement starting in October this year. And we have a stellar team of partners ready to go. And if you're interested in chatting more, please fill out the short survey that Andrea can share in the chat. And also you could scan the QR code on the screen. And with that, we'd love to hear from you, and let's have a conversation. And here are some questions that our team has for the audience. And we'd also like to invite Andrea and Joel back to the discussion and see if we have any other questions from the audience, from the team. And so for me to read out the questions that we have for you is that, how might re+connect be useful for your organization? And at this moment, what are some of the most urgent challenges that your organization can solve with re+connect? And also, do you have ideas and suggestions on how we might be able to rally greater financial and political resources to pilot the tool. And also if there are other people that you think we should reach out to. And then also for today, if there are important topics that you'd like to add to the discussion. And Andrea and Joelle will welcome you back.
Thank you, Jasmine. So any questions and answers to these questions can be made through the chat. But I guess we can also let people unmute themselves as well and talk about, engage in the conversation as well. So that if you want to unmute yourself instead of doing it through the chat, feel free to do so as well.
And Jasmine, it was a wonderful presentation. And just real quick, as people were kind of warming up to conversing, just how the National Puerto Rican Chamber of Commerce looks at re+connect is we've done, you and I have discussed, we've done extensive disaster relief work, and one of the main reasons that this application and this initiative was attractive to us was just to streamline our work. In the past, we had built like an informal type of infrastructure similar to what you're trying to do formally, but it wasn't the most efficient way of doing of disaster relief work. So we believe through this, we can be more efficient, better allocate resources, communicate better, and just simply be more effective. So through this platform, we look to connect our network in the diaspora, in the Puerto Rican communities across the U.S. with resources on the island, and just be a more streamlined, efficient, effective way of disaster relief. So we look forward to the partnership moving forward, and we look forward to helping it grow and seeing it evolve and replicate it in other areas and stuff like that. So again, thank you for having, for letting me join today, and it's just great content.
Thank you, Joelle. And have you all seen some other examples of how people are collecting community data at the moment and how they're keeping track of things and what's working?
Yeah, I mean, for us, what we've seen in some of, again, like we created after Maria, after the earthquakes, after during COVID, a lot of it was informal. A lot of it was, people were putting, individual spreadsheets together of community contacts, and just a real archaic way of doing things, just not the most effective way of doing things, and relying on WhatsApp and stuff like that, where having everything, the data, the contacts, everything all in one place, a one-stop shop, I think will just go a long way. So that was our experience in the past. Just a real inefficient way of doing things. A lot of pen and paper, a lot of using multiple communication app platforms, whether that was Messenger or WhatsApp or whatever the case, to communicate. So I think that it could definitely be more streamlined.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with Joelle. I think re+connect, we're working with you guys because we think local governments need this kind of tool, because they're the government body that's closest to the community. So they're the ones that are going to be a first response to the people that most need it. And it's what Joelle is saying. We need to streamline effectively all of those resources and efforts to the people who need it the most. And this is also a great tool for the nonprofits that exist in the ecosystem of nonprofits that exist in Puerto Rico, that there are a lot of services that they're bringing, but a lot of people don't know that. And this is a good tool and a good platform for them to also get out there and provide the services that they want to provide effectively, and collaborate with the municipalities, who are the ones that can build that bridge between them and the communities that need it. So this is definitely why we're joining re+connect, because we think it's necessary. It's an incredible tool, and I really am looking forward to the growth and development of this tool.
Thank you. Well, since we have a small intimate group today, should we invite people to say hi and kind of tell us a bit more of why you're here and what are you curious to talk more about?
Yeah, I think anyone that wants to open their mic, you know, unmute themselves and open their cameras as well, go ahead and join the conversation. Don't be shy.
I know some of you in the audience, so let's use this time and space for a conversation. Anything that you feel excited about, things that you're concerned about, things that we should do more while we're in the development process, other people that we should talk to.
Everybody's feeling a little shy today. I think another avenue, another interesting topic that sometimes we focus in our work with disaster relief, we focus a lot on the tangible things that are needed, money, food, water, stuff like that. One of the things we realized, and something I think that this platform will be excellent for, is the National Puerto Rican Chamber of Commerce partner. After Maria and the earthquakes, we partnered with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, just because we realized that mental health was such a big issue after all these events. And we realized, especially after the earthquakes, that a lot of the town centers had mental health professionals and stuff speaking with citizens and stuff, and just helping them there, and they were completely overwhelmed with the amount of people they had to talk to. So we feel it's just another opportunity for with re+connect to add mental health resources and stuff like that, along with the more tangible things. I think that's an option. That's something that's an avenue that's not discussed enough, but the need is tremendous. So again, that's why I look forward to everything as this grows, all the opportunity for the things that this platform can provide for the people of PR and moving forward as we scale it.
Right, and that's a very important piece and something that I learned a lot about in the process. So I spent a lot of time with a group of elderly residents in Caguas, and something that I learned and which really inspired the community ambassador component is that a lot of the elderly residents, and especially in Puerto Rico, statistically, there's 60% of people above 65 live by themselves. And that age factor is often compounded with the fact that many of them live in rural areas and also live under poverty line and with the greatest health challenges. And the stats that I've read during my research is that there's a 2 to 3-fold of suicide, especially among the elderly residents after Maria. And so one of the key factors that we're implementing in through the app, the re+connect, is creating a greater sense of social connectedness. As we've seen stories from earthquakes in Japan, in San Francisco, and throughout the pandemic, is that people who are better connected are more likely to survive and recover because they're more likely to have better access to information. People will check on them, and they might have extra helping hands to do what they need to do otherwise that they wouldn't be able to. And another piece that we've also seen in the community work is that elderly people, or people who are sometimes the most vulnerable populations, they actually experience the greatest sense of revival and greatest sense of agency when they are able to give advice to others and help others in that process. And a lot of actually the most active volunteers and participants are people who are retired, are the elderly population. And actually there's some in kind of the mental health challenges that we're facing today. And actually some of the most innovative programs have included people connecting younger people or communities with their grandmother, with their grandparents. Like you've seen programs where you're pairing younger people who need housing or other type of more meaningful connection with communities with elderly people who are ready with their lifetime stories and advice and time to build that human connection that's so much needed in places where loneliness and social connection that's dwindling because people are moving away. How do you bring back that sense of connection? And then kind of in our the narrative of re+connect, I think we talked about with Joelle and the other team, is that when we are trying to build a more resilient society, instead of focusing on the terrible consequences if we didn't do anything, but rather the potential of creating a more connected society when people are hardwired to connect, to have this better sense of being able to make friends and better family connections, and focusing on that in terms of building a more resilient society rather than disaster as a traumatic experience that people don't want to think about. So thank you for bringing that. And actually, I think that's something, aside from the technology and data that we're bringing to facilitate the process, and we'd really love to bring some of the best examples and practices and research to put that in the Puerto Rican context with communities, community leaders, researchers, and all the key stakeholders to figure out how can we create overall the more greater connection. And that's why it's in the name. We're all about connection in building a more resilient process.
Yeah, that's really great. I think that's a very important thing to consider. The elderly population that is here in Puerto Rico, and it keeps growing. And yeah, unfortunately, a lot of them suffer from abandonment, and that being able to create that connection between them, that human connection, like you mentioned, I think it's vital as well. I have a question in the chat from Orlando. I'm going to read it. How was the organization database created? Does it only update as people, communities / organizations themselves upload their info and services in the app?
So that's a good question. So if we're to focus on kind of the organization database, we understand that there has been a lot of existing efforts to create an inventory of working organizations in the kind of the overall community development space. So we, as well as a lot of information on residents as well. So we will do a diligent process to pre-populate and integrate with some of the existing databases. And yes, a lot of this will be relying on people to update their information, but we also understand that that could lead to potential error and gaps, as people might have forgotten to do that, or that things may stay outdated if that's not done. So I think that's a very important research design process that we'll go through to make sure that the information is updated in the process after it's pre-populated. And then also, another important part is that the type of information that we are collecting will be very much mission driven. So we're not going to just collect any information, but rather we'll be collaborating with community leaders, with government agencies, with foundations that will be utilizing the information to deliver resources and services to make sure that the information we're collecting is absolutely useful and necessary. And another part is that we are also experimenting with sort of a two-way communication. Instead of that, it's constantly that foundations and governments and community leaders asking for information from communities, how might we use this platform to create an opportunity for residents to share with us their untold disaster or other type of experiences that we may not have known to ask. And one of the examples that I've heard is from Haiti. There are certain organizations, normally we have a form and we go out and ask for these fields to be filled. But if you don't have a flexible enough structure, we might have missed certain stories. In Haiti was that there was actually a cholera outbreak. But if there wasn't a way for people to share that, we might have, missed this opportunity and to hear from communities. So we really want to learn from those experiences to make sure that, yes, we're asking for information that these organizations need to act upon, but also how do we make sure that this is a platform where people see it as a platform and an opportunity to share their own experience and resources, which are some of the potential areas that we kind of create this incentive structure for people who want to interact with the application, that there is this drive, a very strong why, that they will be updating the information and that the application is designed in a way that's easy enough to do so, and that there are, prompts and reminders to do that. So there's a lot of rich design opportunities that we can get into to make sure that we do actually get the most up-to-date and reliable information with organizations and people in that process.
That's great. Thank you, Orlando, for your questions. Thank you, Jasmine, for that lengthy and very in-depth answer. Anyone else have any questions? You can do it in the chat. You can unmute yourselves. Jasmine, do you have anything else to add?
I think at this point, again, I'd love to hear from the audience, how do you see, kind of back to the whole, how do you see some of the opportunities that we can make sure that the engagement is rich and sustained? And what are some of the kind of the political and cultural aspects in Puerto Rico that we can tap into the power? Because what really inspired us is also after Maria, we've counted, there's some research, there are 200-something thousand hours of volunteer times people put into in the first couple of weeks, and people helped millions of other people. And how do we make sure that we continue to tap into that community power? And also, how do we do that before a disaster strike, right? So there are lots of great studies and practices and examples. And I don't know if you and Joelle have some ideas kind of from a more cultural and identity political perspective of how do we mobilize these kind of collective action. I mean, that's some of the hardest questions that we have in today's world, right? Like, how do we get more people involved in doing good and supporting each other?
Yeah, at least for me, I think, that's like you said, it's like a barrier of sorts. When in a disaster, sometimes of course, we're gonna be, thinking about us and thinking about our families and thinking about how we can better survive this. And it's difficult sometimes to think outside of our situations, but I think something that distinguishes Puerto Rico a lot is the fact that through adversity, we unite a lot. I think that was seen, at least in my experience during Maria, our community, the street I lived in, usually we never engaged, the occasional wave and the occasional hello, but we were the ones, even if we didn't meet or we didn't even know our names, we were the ones that were moving the trees that were, that were obstructing the path. And we were the ones that, were aiding each other. There were neighbors 3 doors down that were like, hey, we have a planta, if we have a long enough cable extension, we can try, have some power and all that stuff, you know. So I think that's something that it's a benefit of our culture, and I think it comes naturally within us to you know, unite against adversity. But you know, and that's the issue. It's during the adversity, not necessarily beforehand. It's like, but I think with the right connections, I think like with the right connections and the right people and the right marketing, I think this could be like something that a lot of people can hop on and everything. So I really wish that a lot of, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and share the collaboration survey once again to anyone that wants to fill it out. And if you don't, you know, if you personally can't fill it out or don't want to fill it or anything, you can share it with other people that might be interested on this initiative. Share it through the emails. This webinar is going to be recorded. It's going to be put in our YouTube page as well. So we're going to send that out and on our email chain or on our email list, and you can go ahead and share it with anyone that's interested. I think that's another way that we can, you know, bridge better those interested partners.
Yeah, and one thing I say is, you know, sometimes it can be tough to get people on board for new types of platforms and technology. And some people can kind of be set in their ways. So I feel like the most effective way, and similar to what Andrea said, is after Maria and the earthquakes, it was amazing to see how the cultures, you know, how everybody came together, different political ideologies and all that stuff. That none of that mattered. The people here, the Boricuas here in the States, came together like nothing I've ever seen before. So I feel like I feel like the most effective way to grow the platform might be to identify those in the individual communities who did extensive work and kind of starting with them, and they understand what the needs were during these disaster reliefs. They understand what the shortcomings were, what worked, what didn't work. I feel like they would understand the importance, and they'd see the value in the platform. And I feel that'd be a good way to kind of start the snowball from growing, is identifying the key people in specific areas who did the work, who would be open to using a platform like this, and then again having them become the ambassador to advocate for the platform moving forward within their individual communities. That's kind of how I've always envisioned this platform growing. So that, you know, I think that would be the most effective way. So, you know, that's kind of what I had in my head.
Right, and I think the other part that I also wanted to add on is that the functions and that we're providing are really based on the hacks community groups have already doing. And I think the big shout out here is again to the community leaders who often, like Mariana that we've shown, is that they often have their families to take care of, their own daytime job that they have to do while they're working extra hours for the love of their community a lot of times to provide the kind of support that they see that the community needs. And the challenge a lot of time is that without tools like re+connect, it is so difficult adding on the difficult work that they already do. And I've heard stories of community leaders, you know, in order to deliver the food and also record community information, they have to put their kids in the car while they drive around and lock their kids in the car and go into the homes. And so if we imagine that we have 4 community leaders who are taking care of 5,000 residents in their community, imagine what if we had 100, what if we had 1,000 people who are supporting each other. The information that we'll be able to get will not have to wait for 3 years for that to be updated. So I think ultimately, aside from building greater social connection, is that we love to be able to help channel the resources to the hands of people who are doing the hard work, and that they get the right kind of resources to support what they need to do, and that they feel that they are supported, that there are others that they can be part of the effort with. And we also know that a lot of community residents want to help. I want to help. I want to find a way to help with the community that I'm now part of. So kind of finding the balance between grassroots leadership and then also kind of the procedure that a lot of times governments and foundation, bigger organizations have to adhere to. How do we meet somewhere in the middle so that we're mobilizing the very necessary grassroots and leadership among our residents and communities, but then also making sure that there are enough accountability and right procedures to make sure that risk is managed, that we're not exposing people to undue risks, and that they have the capacity to participate, but then also these procedures to make sure that funding is going to the right places, and also in some ways of a more leveled field deciding how that resources is used. So that part.
I think, I don't know if we want to give a little bit of more time for people to, talk. Once again, the collaboration form, I sent it through the chat. So if if you don't want to talk right now, but you want to be engaged with Reconnect, you can fill out the form. I believe you are going to be sending, Reconnect is going to be sending like emails and all that stuff, updating. So that's another way to stay in contact with them. I'm going to share once again their social medias and our social medias.
Shall we close?
Yes, I guess so. So yeah, if no one else wants to, ask anything or talk about the initiative, we're going to be closing the webinar. Thank you so much for everyone that stayed here. Thank you for everyone that was interested, and thank you for the questions. Thank you, Joel, for joining us and giving us some feedback. And thank you, Jasmine, for this initiative, for such an amazing presentation. Once again, this is going to be recorded. It's going to be up on our YouTube page. We're going to send it as well. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And if you have any closing words, you can go ahead.
Well, thank you again for everyone for joining today, for the opportunity to share with you what we're doing and to have this discussion on kind of the different intricacies of how we're trying our best to bring this initiative together. And we'd really love to hear from you. We will be sharing the recording and our contact information in a follow-up email. And yeah, we look forward to having further conversations, and for the people who are listening to the recording as well, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much.